All right, so we've recapped Oklahoma versus SMU, but we got to dive into some of those recruits that were on campus and where Oklahoma is trending for some of these guys, because there is a recruitment coming up to its end on the 20th for the four-star edge Danny Okoye, and Oklahoma fans have their eyes set on this kid. So we got to talk about that. We got to talk about Grant Bricks. We got to talk about a couple of 2025 guys that were on campus that Oklahoma fans really need to be keeping their eyes out on. But before we dive into it, before we talk about it, you guys got to do me one thing. Go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, jump down in the comments below, give me your guys' thoughts. Who do you think we land? Who do you think doesn't come to Oklahoma? I want to hear from you guys. But let's go ahead and let's dive into it. We're going to start off with the four-star edge rusher, Danny Okoye. Yes, dropping his final three. And by the way, isn't this graphic just absolutely sick? But as we've talked about before, Texas and Tennessee, we're going to be the main contenders for Danny Okoye against Oklahoma. And after the win against Alabama, Texas is kind of all of a sudden made up some ground with some recruits. And you would expect Danny Okoye with an upcoming visit to Texas, if that visit this weekend actually happens, you would expect Texas is in this at some level. Now, as I've said before, Tennessee, they're making a huge push for the four-star edge rusher out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Plays for Noah Homeschool, actually. Josh Heupel is doing a really good job at kind of molding and churning this Tennessee roster back into a SEC championship contending roster. And you saw that last year where Alabama comes into their house and, I mean, they beat them narrowly, but they beat them, right? They're taking the steps in the right direction. And they've even gotten a five-star edge rusher in this class. Now, I think that helps Oklahoma a little bit because both Texas and Tennessee kind of have an elite edge rusher at that position already in this class. While Oklahoma, you have the four-star and Wyatt Gilmore, and that's kind of it, right? So Danny Okoye could come in and really compete for this job, and he's not having to compete with the five-star. Now, Danny Okoye, you know, maybe if he is playing at a different school, maybe he's playing 6A high school here in Oklahoma, maybe this is a five-star kid, right? He has that kind of talent. But playing at Noah Homeschool, you're only going to be able to get so much in the recruiting rankings. These just evaluators, that's kind of what they're going to give him. Fair or not, that's just kind of how it's going to be. But Danny Okoye, I mean, let's be honest, he's a five-star talent. I mean, I went down there, I got to see the kid, I got to meet him. Dude's hands are like twice my hand size. Like, they're ginormous. And that's going to be good for Oklahoma at the edge position. So here's my deal. Danny Okoye, I feel like, is going to be in the Oklahoma class. Right now, that's where I feel like it's trending. But I'm not going to discount Tennessee. I'm not going to discount what they've been doing and how they've been pushing. They've been pushing pretty hard on the recruiting trail. And then I'm not going to discount where Texas is now sitting with the win over Alabama. So right now, you like Oklahoma, but you got to watch out for Tennessee and Texas. They've made up some ground here. You look at Danny Okoye, 152th ranked nationally in the 247 composite rankings. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the crystal balls, the future cast, the on-3 predictions come in for Danny Okoye for Oklahoma after that official visit. So feel good about it. Now, I will say this. People are going to ask this question. Danny Okoye is going to Texas this weekend. Then on the 22nd, he has an official visit set up, and this is per the 247 website, with LSU. And then he has one set up on September 30th with Tennessee. If he commits to Oklahoma, you would imagine that those visits aren't going to happen. But we have to keep an eye on that, right? Because if he's going to be shutting his recruitment down on the 20th, maybe LSU and maybe Tennessee aren't getting those visits. So it's something that we need to keep our eye out on. But if you're wanting to know what kind of recruit and what kind of production Danny Okoye could bring to the Sooners, 2 years, got 121 tackles, 37 tackles for loss, 16 and a half sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups, and 1 fumble recovery. And I get it. Right now, he's injured, but I don't believe that this injury is going to hurt him in the slightest. Because guess what? But all these staffs that are recruiting him, they know what he can do. They know that he's got an elite level talent. So they're going to continue to push, and they're going to continue to recruit him. No injury is going to set him back from any recruitment or any recruiter wanting to back off. I don't expect that. So how do I come to the conclusion of Oklahoma? Well, it seems like he's had a good time at Oklahoma in the past couple visits. He's been to Oklahoma now 4 times. That's 1 unofficial, 3 unofficials. And you look at all of the other schools per On3, because On3 does a really good job at tracking these visits. Looks like LSU's had 2, Texas has had 1, or no, Texas has had 2, Oklahoma State's had 2, Tennessee's had 2, Arkansas has 1. So you look at it, Oklahoma has, from what it looks like on 3, from On3's website, has the most visits. So you follow the unofficial visits, you follow the official visit, Oklahoma has the most. You would feel good about their position, especially with kind of everything coming out of the official visit in favor of Oklahoma. But again, I'm not discounting Texas. I'm not discounting Tennessee. Those could still be real players in that recruitment. So moving on to the 4-star offensive lineman, Grant Brix. This is another recruitment that Oklahoma fans, you guys have been paying attention to this one, because Grant Brix is a 5-star talent and should continue to rise to the rankings. I mean, you look at the consensus across the board, the number 52 overall player with On3, the number 87th overall with ESPN, number 99 with Rivals, number 132 with 247. This is a kid that, as the season continues to weigh on, you continue to see him dominate in where he's at. I mean, the thing is, as the same thing with Danny Okoye, Grant Brix can only do so much where he's playing, right? So he continues to dominate with where he's at. As you see here, it's coming down between Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Kansas State. And with this quote from On3, it says it's just 3 really good options, and I'm struggling to pick between the 3. And this year specifically, you've really started to notice this trend with recruits. It is hard for these recruits sometimes to tell a coach, I'm not coming to play for you. I'm not going to be coming to your school. I'm going here. Because they build really deep relationships with these coaches. At some point or another, they've got to do it. But as you can see for Grant Brix, hey, it's harder for him to go in and tell Matt Rule or, whoever, hey, I'm not going to be coming there. Now, Nebraska, I think the only thing that's helping Oklahoma here in the recruitment against Nebraska is Nebraska's 0 for 2, right? They're 0 and 2. Oklahoma, they're 2 and 0. And the offensive line for Oklahoma has looked really good this season. Now, on the side for Nebraska, maybe if they get winning, maybe that changes things. But you would imagine if Oklahoma keeps winning, Nebraska, they just can't get it together, that he would ultimately end up picking the smart football decision to go with Bill Bedenbaugh, Jerry Schmidt, and the Oklahoma Sooners. That's where this one sits. You ask about the unofficial visits. Kansas State's got 7 total visits. Nebraska's got 6. Oklahoma's got 4. But this really comes down to the development, and that's Jerry Schmidt and Bill Bedenbaugh, baby. Let's go. Best in the country. So now we're going to look at some of the 2025 guys that were on campus. Kobe Sellers out of Shadow Creek High School in Pearland, Texas. 5'11 and a half, 165 pounds. The number 159th ranked player in the 247 composite rankings. Hey, he's been to Oklahoma a couple times now. We'll go down here and we'll look at these visits. He's been to Oklahoma 3 times. 3 times. You heard that right. Kobe Sellers, we had a chance to connect with him recently after the visit. And we talked about, hey, what was the feeling around being in Norman on Saturday? 3rd time at OU. Every time is fire. This is what he said. Great time with BV, Jay Valai. So, great atmosphere. He said it was turned up. OU is one of his top schools, no doubt. You love to hear that. You love to hear that Oklahoma is in the top school list for some of these elite recruits going into the next recruiting cycle. However, he's been to Texas 3 times. And I would expect after, just like Danny Okoye, after Texas beat Alabama, that there's going to be some momentum in their direction. Now, whether or not Kobe actually goes to Texas, that's to remain to be seen. But he's from that state, so you would imagine Texas is going to push at some level for this recruit. Oklahoma, what they could get in Kobe Sellers last season in 2022, he had 61 tackles, 9 pass breakups, 1 interception, 2 interceptions for a touchdown, and just 2 interceptions. But I'll tell you this. Kobe Sellers is going to be a guy that comes in. Maybe he is teamed up with Jonah Williams in that secondary. You would really like to have him in your secondary. An elite kid, plays in Houston. So you know he's playing elite level talent week in and week out. So right now you're looking at it, it's going to be an Oklahoma-Texas battle. That's where I think this one ends up coming down to. Another Red River showdown on the recruiting trail. Now, another player that I think you guys have heard a lot about that I would like everybody to pay attention to, and that's going to be Christian Thatcher. Yeah. Now, we haven't talked about him much. We especially haven't talked about him since we haven't talked about him since the Sooners Under the Stars. But we followed back up with him, and he was on campus this past week. And one of the things that I kind of get a sense from him is it really feels like Oklahoma's the leader here. It really feels like Oklahoma is going to win this recruitment. And I know there's some pretty telling signs out there that tell us that Christian Thatcher loves Oklahoma and that he loves Ted Roof, which also, being from the Las Vegas area where DeMarco Murray and the staff has just recruited so well in the past, like, come on. Christian Thatcher, it feels like it's all signs are pointing to Norman. So he came up to the SMU game. He brought his sister and his uncle who haven't been yet. Had a great time. We're going to try to get him on the podcast soon because I would really like to have you guys learn more about Christian Thatcher as we head into this 2025 cycle, because I really believe this is a guy that could be a part of this class for the University of Oklahoma. I mean, you heard me right. You heard me say that. Now, we have another 2025 recruit that was on campus for the University of Oklahoma this week. And that was Mykel Fasusi, 5-star offensive tackle. You heard that right. You heard it. Mykel Fasusi was back on campus. He wasn't able to make it last week, but he was able to get up here this week along with his teammate, 4-star safety Jayden Hardy. Yep. The 6'4", 285-pound offensive tackle out of Lewisville, Texas. Dude is elite. Now, if you're Oklahoma, you're going to have to fight right now a little over 33 other schools for this commitment. But you guys know we've had him here on the podcast. And I really like where Oklahoma's sitting here. I really like where Oklahoma's at in this recruitment. Because you guys heard it when he was here on the podcast. He loves Oklahoma. He has a good relationship with the staff. Keep an eye out on this one. I think he could be up here for a couple more times this season. And we'll keep you guys up to date there. We'll try to get him back on probably after the season. Well, after high school's done, football season's done. We'll get him back here on the podcast. We'll do a checkup on the recruitment. But if Oklahoma and Bill Beatonbow can do what we think they can do on the recruiting trail in 2025, I think Oklahoma fans are going to be okay with it. Let's just put it that way. I mean, Ty Haywood, Lamont Rogers. You got the 2 kids out in the Bishop Gorman area. Yep. Now, there's another guy that a lot of you guys might have forgotten about that recently decommitted from Michigan. That's Mantrez Walker. Yeah. Remember this guy? We've talked about him before. 4-star linebacker. Only one that doesn't have his 4 stars, ESPN. 2025 class, 5'11", 215 pounds out of Buford, Georgia. How great would it be for Oklahoma to come in and win a guy like this? So he decommitted from the University of Oklahoma. Or not the University of Oklahoma, or Notre Dame. But I'd expect Oklahoma to be in on this one. I like Tennessee to go after him as well. You got South Carolina for sure going to be in there. Georgia's going to be in there. So keep an eye out on this kid. You expect his offers to go up. You'd expect the relationships that Oklahoma has built to potentially try to get you in on this recruitment. So just to run down the list of some of the players that were on campus this weekend. Mykel Hawkins. We actually saw him at the 405 Burger Bar. Mykel, Patterson, McDonald, Jayden Hardy, Nigel Smith, Xavier Robinson, Andy Bass, Josh Aisosa, and Bergin Kysar. Those were some of your 2024 recruits that were on campus. For 2025 guys, you saw 5-star offensive lineman Mykel Fasusi, 4-star quarterback Kevin Sperry, 4-star offensive tackle Jalen Beckley. You had 4-star wide receiver Elijah Thomas, 4-star safety Kobe Sellers, 4-star linebacker Christian Thatcher, 3-star defensive lineman Garrison Utley, which we didn't talk a whole lot about him, but we reached out to him as well, and he said it was a really good visit. It was a little different, being the recruit instead of being a guest, but, he said it's awesome to be on campus as a recruit. And then you had Malik Hawkins on campus, the 2025 cornerback as well, brother to Mykel Hawkins. And then 2026 guys, you had offensive line Drew Evers, and then you had 2026 running back Caden Jones out of Jenks, Oklahoma. So Oklahoma had a big recruiting weekend. And I think they got to make a statement, right? In a game where it was a defensive battle. I don't think a lot of people expected that SMU game to be a defensive battle for Oklahoma, but it was. And I think it's going to have made a statement with some of these recruits. And I expect over the next couple of weeks, when you get more guys on campus, you're going to see Oklahoma continue to have big recruiting weekends. And we're going to keep an eye out for these 5-stars because I would expect that over the 2025 cycle, they're going to try to get a Jonah Williams on campus. Not sure exactly where they sit with some of these 5-star defensive linemen like Armando Blount and Elijah Griffin, but we're going to keep an eye on those as well because I think that those are recruitments that, Oklahoma will certainly try to get into. I don't think they can win them, but I think they will try to get in there. So we'll keep an eye out for who gets on campus, especially as Oklahoma's defense continues to improve. They're only going to be able to get guys there and get guys to want to come check it out. So, guys, I want to hear from you. Jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are around this big recruiting weekend that Oklahoma had. And, do you think Oklahoma can land either Danny Okoye or Grant Brix? And if you guys haven't already, hit that like and hit that subscribe button.